The Hall of Scepters was silent. Even the whispers of the elite court of the Zaryth Empire seemed to have been swallowed by the weight of anticipation. High above, the alien banners of the Empire shimmered in the luminescent glow of the biolamps, their soft hum filling the immense space like the heartbeat of a living world. At the far end of the hall, on her crystalline throne, the alien Queen Belethris sat with an elegance that could command suns, her elongated neck poised and her multifaceted eyes scanning the assembly. I had been summoned to this hall because, apparently, humans had a reputation among the outer systems, not for raw power, not for technology, but for ingenuity. I was curious what that meant. And now, standing among the Zaryth nobles, I realized I was entirely out of place. My hands were empty. My uniform, the standard human exploration garb, looked like a ragged joke among their opulent ceremonial armor. I could feel the eyes of hundreds of dignitaries boring into me. Each alien courtier was impossibly tall, with translucent skin that shimmered with veins of luminescent biocircuits. They communicated in a silent language of pulse flashes and pheromones, but the translators in my ears gave me enough to understand their disapproval. "She's dying," whispered one of the attendants behind me, a pale, wiry Zaryth female named Salira, the translator confirming the words in my mind. The Queen's presence had always been overwhelming in stories, but seeing her now, I could feel the weight of her authority in every cell of my body. Her energy flickered weakly, subtle, but to an experienced observer, terrifyingly apparent. Even her pulse, the rhythmic hum of her life force, was irregular. The court had not noticed, or perhaps they had chosen to ignore it, unwilling to admit the vulnerability of the Empire's ruler. And then I saw it, a slight shimmer in her throat, an indication of dehydration. Even to my untrained human eye, it was evident. The Queen was struggling to maintain her energy. The court had been too distracted with etiquette, protocols, and their petty squabbles to notice. And I, a mere human, standing at the edge of insignificance, noticed. The moment of realization struck me with icy clarity. I reached for my canteen, a simple object by human standards, yet holding the power to change the fate of an empire. I didn't hesitate. I had no protocol, no orders. I only knew that her life, no matter the species, was precious. I stepped forward, all eyes on me now. "Your Majesty," I said, my voice steady though my stomach quivered. "Water." For a heartbeat, the hall froze. The courtier's pulse flashes stuttered in shock. A human had dared to address the Queen directly, without the proper ritual of bowing and signaling their respect with pheromone codes. A human. They were supposed to be fragile, clever but weak. Not bold. Not capable of taking initiative in the presence of a galactic monarch. The Queen's eyes widened, not with anger, but with surprise. Then, slowly, with deliberate grace, she gestured with a hand delicate as spun crystal. "Bring it," she commanded. I held the canteen forward, my hands steady despite the storm of nerves in my chest. Slowly, she leaned forward, her multifaceted eyes fixed on mine. When her lips touched the canteen, the energy in the hall changed. Her pulse, previously irregular and faltering, began to harmonize, a low, radiant hum filling the space. The courtiers gasped, some audibly, though most managed only a flicker of their pulse lights in shock. The Queen drank, and with each sip, her aura strengthened, ripples of energy cascading outward. It was subtle at first, but soon, the room itself seemed to vibrate with a resonance that only I could have initiated. The Queen lifted her head and fixed her gaze on me. And then she smiled. Not a small smile, but a smile that radiated authority, understanding, and, for reasons I could not fathom, approval. "You, human," she whispered, her voice low and resonant in my mind via the translators. You understand life. Before the court could react, the atmosphere shifted entirely. The nobles, who had been poised to reprimand me for insolence, now trembled. Not from fear of me, they were still far superior in strength, but from the recognition that something fundamental had changed. The queen, the unchallenged ruler of the Zaryth Empire, had acknowledged a human as a being of significance. I wasn't sure whether to bow, kneel, or simply remain frozen in awe. I did none of those things. Instead, I felt a surge of confidence I hadn't known I possessed. Humans weren't naturally strong in this galaxy. We weren't particularly fast, resilient, or telepathic. But we had something else. Something they had consistently underestimated: adaptability, courage, and ingenuity in the face of impossibility. The queen rose from her throne, her towering form radiating light and power. Human, she said, you have done what my entire court could not. You see the truth that others fail to recognize. I swallowed. I only offered water, Your Majesty. Her laugh, melodic and alien, filled the hall. It was soft but carried the weight of eons. Do not diminish yourself. The simplest gestures often carry the greatest consequences. The nobles murmured amongst themselves, their pulse flashes erratic. Some were angry, some were awed. All were silent, recognizing that the queen had been saved, yes, but also that the human who had done so had, in a single act, rewritten the rules of etiquette, power, and influence in the Zaryth Empire. For the next hour, I walked alongside the queen as she made her rounds. Every eye in the hall followed me. Every whisper in the back channels speculated about the human who had dared to act where centuries of protocol had failed. And then came the true test. A rival noble, the Countess Viral, stepped forward. She was known throughout the Empire for her cunning and her ability to manipulate the queen through subtle means. She approached, her pulse flickering with the intention to intimidate. Your Majesty, she said, her voice sharp like fractured crystal, surely this human's action was reckless. To touch the queen directly, without permission, is forbidden. The queen's eyes, now glowing with renewed vigor, turned on the countess. I forbid you to speak, she said, her voice calm yet final. This human is no longer merely a guest. He is an ally, a participant in the destiny of this empire. The countess faltered. She had never been denied so publicly. And then the queen, in a gesture unprecedented in recorded history, placed a hand on my shoulder. A pulse of energy transferred from her to me, a silent acknowledgement, a bond not of servitude, but of respect. The hall went silent once more. But this time it was different. The silence wasn't fear, it was reverence. Humans, long considered weak, fragile, and incapable of understanding the complexities of Zaryth authority, had proven themselves worthy. In one simple act of offering water, I had demonstrated the essence of humanity: compassion, courage, and the ability to act when others hesitate. Days passed, and the story of that moment spread throughout the empire. It wasn't just about water. It wasn't about courage alone. It was about perspective. Humans, it seemed, had the remarkable capacity to see what others overlooked, to act decisively when tradition paralyzed the rest, and to earn respect where it had never been given. The queen herself summoned me to her private quarters, far from the public eye. Human, she said softly, you have altered the balance of my court. Not through weapons, not through strategy, but through insight. I would have trusted few enough to see what you saw. I bowed, though it felt insufficient. I only did what anyone with the ability to help would do, Your Majesty. She smiled again, this time with warmth that reached deep into her alien eyes. "No, human. You did what few could imagine doing. You saw truth. You acted. You earned your place here." In the following weeks, my role in the court expanded. I advised on issues ranging from logistical strategy to planetary resource distribution, often challenging long-held conventions with simple, effective solutions. The nobles resisted at first, but the Queen's endorsement was absolute. Humans, they realized, were not to be underestimated. Years later, historians would recount that moment in the Hall of Scepters not as an anecdote about a thirsty monarch, but as the turning point in the Zaryth Empire's understanding of humanity. One simple act, offering water, demonstrated that strength is not always measured in power or command. Sometimes, it is measured in courage, empathy, and the willingness to act when others will not. And the Queen? She never forgot it. Every time I approached, even years later, there was a spark of recognition in her gaze, a silent acknowledgement that in a moment of need, humanity had proven itself worthy of the respect of a galactic empress. For me, that day was the beginning of something larger than diplomacy or protocol. It was the day humans stopped being guests in the galaxy and became participants in its destiny. One sip of water, one act of courage, one human gesture, it had changed everything. And as I look back, standing in the same Hall of Scepters, watching the next generation of aliens and humans learn to coexist, I understand. It was never about power. It was about being human, and that was enough to rewrite the universe.